Okay, so I started just like I normally do. I created a folder called Week 7. This folder does have another folder inside of it called Images, and we'll get to what's in there. There's surprise images. I have my index file, and I'm going to put some content into it. So this is a little bit different. It's actually not that different than other pages, but as you guys know, how a HTML page works at this point, I did add a little bit of a style sheet in here. So we have a container, and we have a dynamic button style, which you'll see what that does. And I have a button already put on here called Add New Button, and there is a div ID called Button Area. So if I were to go to my actual button, which I don't have right now, or my page, let me just bring that up for us. What we see is this, right? Interactive button. Click on Add New Button, nothing happens. So let's go ahead and start looking at our code and figure out how we can make that happen. What is up with this sunshine? Okay, I'm gonna just turn my screen off, or my camera off, so that we can do this without the sunshine. All right, I made it a little bit bigger there. All right, so how do we start this? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we are going to get our script source. We're going to create a script file for this. We're doing this because we want to start getting in the habit of keeping our JavaScripts outside of our page. So if you remember, first we need to create it. So we're going to right click over here, new file. We're going to call it script.js. I should probably actually type in that box and look. New file, script.js. And then what we're going to do is start putting some code in here. Actually, we have to call it. It's in the head. We put script defer, if you remember that. And then we put src equals, what's the name of the file? It is script.js. Close it off, and it already made that for us. Great, perfect. Why am I just a picture of my face? All right, so I want to put an external JavaScript file in, and again, we use external JavaScript files because it's the right way to do it. We can, of course, always create a script tag in the head, but it seems like people really want them external, so let's do that. So in order to do it, we need to actually create our JavaScript file. So we're going to do new file. We're going to call it script.js. All right. And then in the index page, we have to call that. If you remember the correct syntax, it is script, and then it is defer, so that it waits till everything loads before it starts trying to run anything. src for what's the source, and the name of it is script.js, which gets filled in for us by our system. Close that up, and there we have it. I'm going to save that. All right, so now let's move on to script.js. So what do we need to do? Well, first thing we need to do is we need to have a function that creates a button. So there's a couple ways that we can do this. We're going to actually just goof around for a minute, and I'm going to create a function called createButton. Give some space there. And what I'm going to have it do is I'm going to have it just real quick console.log, and I'll say create button. So that's what it'll output for us so that we know that it's working. How have we done this before? How have we called this feature before? We've gone to index, and we have gone to button right here, the button ID, add a button. and we said something like on click. I'm going to say on click equals what? In our case, it's create button, like that. I'm going to now go ahead and save it. Let's go ahead and run it. Let's open my JavaScript console. Okay, there it is. I'm going to refresh. Add new button. Create button, right? So we know that that works. Okay, but there is another way that we can do this, and this is going to be all that's going to be in this video, and we are going to programmatically tell the button what the code should be executed. So let's go ahead and try that. So here in our script, I should do this. In the index, get rid of this on click. This is an event, the on click. That is something we're going to talk a lot more about, and we're saying, you know, when the button gets clicked, run this particular script, which in our case is called create button. But what if I could do that automatically in our script? So in the first couple lines, what I want to do is I want to add an event listener. And what do I mean by an event listener? Well, you have done things sort of like this before. So as soon as the document loads, we're going to have it call document.get element by ID. What is the name of it? It's add button. This is the one thing I don't like about external JavaScript files, is a lot of the stuff that fills in automatically isn't quite filling in automatically because it doesn't know what's on your page, but that's okay. Get element by ID, add button, dot, and this is where things get a little bit different. We need to run a code. We need to add an event listener. And so the way we're going to do that is actually really quite lovely. And we type add, and we type add event listener, and then we type what's the event we're looking for. In this case, we're looking for a click, and then we put comma, what do we want to call? In our case, we want to call create button. Okay. All right, I actually don't think it's these last. There it is. So that's what we're going to call. What you probably notice is that there is no, so I'm not going to use parentheses there, and by not using parentheses, that means we're going to limit the amount of, parameters that we can include, but we will deal with that in just 1 second. All right. So at the beginning, when this loads, it's going to tell add button, which is this button, add button. It's going to assign the event listener click, and it's going to have it call create button. So let's run that. So I'm going to, if you remember, let's actually look at the code really quick, just so you know. There is no code on this add new button. I hit, let me go back to my console, hit add new button, create button. It worked because the code put that event listener onto here, and then when you press it, the event listener basically says call this function. Okay. Yeah. So let's keep moving with this now. Let's move on to our next video, where we're going to take a look at how we can use this event listener, and we can add some new features to our code.